309 in any way?
There are changes to 309, but it doesn't change that component of it. And you'll see I cited at the bottom the RFA statute that talks about emergency placements and compelling reason placements. So you can use that site as well. So that option, this is the second good thing about RFA, or was the second good thing. That option can now be at any point in the case. So prior law, previously, you either could only do that CLETS, CACI, and walkthrough pre-dispo or post-dispo when a child's being replaced.
But so, Mr. Mellis had a question, which was, how do you call it an emergency after that?
That's why the state screwed up a little bit, because the intention was for this to be available at any point in the case. There was no limitation on when this can happen. I think they did two things wrong. They called it an emergency placement, and then they also cited to 309 and 361.45, which are both statutes that limit this. 309 is pre-dispo, 361.45 is post-dispo, but is only available when a child's being moved. And we don't do that. We actually don't use that statute enough, post-dispo.
What was that statute again?
361.45.
And what does it say?
It says when a child's being moved post-dispo, you can place with a relative doing a CACI, CLETS, and walkthrough. You don't need to do a full approval. So it's cited to those, and so now there's all this confusion about, well, are we limited to those circumstances, or can we do it at any point in the case? Mm-hmm. The state has clarified no less like 5 times in meetings with county council that they can do it at any point in the case. So I'm hopeful that we won't see this as an obstruction, but who knows? I mean, yet to be determined what's going to happen in court.
And it is contained in FYIs, and here's what you can do with an FYI. While the judge does not care about DCFS policy, who does care about DCFS policy in that courtroom? Exactly. County council will pay attention to an FYI. And if you can get county council on your side on this issue, well, then the judge is going to have a much easier time doing the right thing.
Okay. So, and then just a note at the bottom of the slide. So foster care funding isn't available until the home is approved. There's no retroactive funds to the date of placement. So if approval is taking 5 or 6 months, they're not going to get any foster care funding until the 5th or 6th month. So
except for the $400.
So we have the $400, and then you also have CalWORKs, and CalWORKs can come in at the same time as that $400. There's no restriction that it's only one of those funding streams.
How much is CalWORKs?
CalWORKs is about $350 per child, but where you really see a difference between the foster care rate is when you have multiple kids. So CalWORKs goes up in small increments. So for 2 kids, it's like $500. But the foster care rate right now for 1 child is $890. So for 2 kids, you're getting, close to $1,800, and then for 2 kids on CalWORKs, you're getting $500. So you start to see those discrepancies as more kids are in the home, but it's something for them to have while they're pending the full approval process.
And the $400 again is per kid per month for 3 months.
So this next slide is just a reminder that 309 requirements haven't changed. We gave this training, I did it with county council to the judges, and just wanted to remind everybody that there's still a requirement to look at relatives pre-dispo and a requirement to release to a relative as soon as possible.
A requirement, not a suggestion.
Are there any questions about that? About the emergency placement? Okay, and then the last slide's about equal-ish funding. So I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the rates, and when we have a foster parent, a relative who's not federally eligible, and they either get nothing or just some very small amount, that all changed. So once a family is approved as a resource family, federal eligibility doesn't matter anymore. The relative is entitled to the same rates. So we shouldn't be seeing these relatives come into court with no funding.
Has anyone had a case where the parents, I guess, made too much money before the kids were detained, and so the grandparents aren't getting any funding? Nobody has that? Well, that's interesting. They may not have told you about it because these cases are around the building, but
it shouldn't be happening
anymore. Yeah, it won't be happening anymore.
Yeah, back in the day, it was like 30% of our relatives weren't federally eligible, and they were getting nothing or CalWORKs, and there was big disparities in what a foster parent would get for that same child. So RFA implementation for relatives in Los Angeles, I already talked about this, but they split it up into 2. So we have these private entities who are doing the home environment assessment, the ASFA-like assessment, and then we have the social worker unit doing the psychosocial assessment. I was very worried it would be the adoption unit, but it's not. It's actually the ASFA unit, so that might look better. So the ASFA unit, sorry, my own feeling, but the ASFA unit has now converted. They're a new unit. They're called Resource Family Recruitment and Approval Division. So if you're trying to cite someone into court, that's the new group.
And again,
no more ASFA.
Right, you're going to be tempted to say no more ASFA, but there is an exception to that. Placements that were being assessed prior to December 31st, 2016 are still proceeding under ASFA,
right.
Correct?
That's true. And then the adoption unit has been converted into this Resource Family Support and Adoption Division. And that's all I had, unless anyone has any questions.
I'm sure you guys have questions. Who is it? Well, actually, I think it's free, isn't it?
The county's providing it. So in the early implementing counties, some of the counties in San Francisco took 36 hours of training, and they were basically not getting any relatives approved. And so a lot of the counties have learned their lessons from those early implementing counties. So LA County is at the minimum 12 hours right now, and they've created different ways to provide this to the relatives. Some of it's online. Some of it the social worker is supposed to do in the first in-home interview. So they've created what they think is kind of a relative-friendly way to get this training to the relatives. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't miss this, but do you have relatives, let's say, that have cleared both caffeine flats, but there's a problem in the home, and it could be remedied?
Yeah.
Will the department pay for taking the bars off the windows or whatever?
Or buy a crib.
Yeah.
Or...
So that is one of their stated reasons for why they contracted out that ASFA part, because they said to do that before they had to go through a lot of hoops and hurdles to get approved from the county to fund things like that. But these private groups can do that. They have funding, and they're supposed to be able to help the relative remedy these kind of small issues or get a crib or get a bed so that they can get through that first part, the home environment assessment, formerly known as ASFA. Yeah.
So,
They have
Spanish-speaking
workers, and they have Spanish-speaking training too.
okay,
Yeah. They have training in a bunch of languages actually. Yeah.
Yes.
So for those forms that you were holding up earlier that you said you might not even sign based on the in-depth
Right.
background check, how does that affect our
Documented is not a reason to deny placement.
This was kind of 10. I just signed on. Now it's 10. They go for like the whole day. Or like.
I'm sure it will.
will, but-
California has put in some
Yeah,
protective measures. We passed a bill 2 years ago that said that
I'll just have it up in the background while I do shit.
to try to get juvenile court records to figure out who's undocumented. So they put specific language in the written records, specifically about undocumented relatives. So I'm sure they'll try to do whatever protections they can.
Yes.
We know that that's not entirely in the control of
I
California.
talked to
Yeah,
someone.
yesterday morning, I would give you a much more confident
Why not?
answer about all this, but the world is changing every day. So if your clients are asking, could this be a problem? The only answer is, I don't know. There's everyone who has commented on it or made a law or a regulation about it, from the city of LA to the state of California, has said no, lack of documentation should not be a hindrance to becoming an RFA, a resource family. But now everything's changing.
Yeah.
So if the RFA is denied and they just have to go through their
That's a
appeals
great
process,
question.
is there anything that we can do with this report that's denied?
So
That's a great question. So it's entirely an administrative process, so they need to go through the administrative courts. There are more clear due process rights now than there were
John
before. So
Rodriguez.
that's a good
No,
thing.
I like.
What are the added due process?
He's like signed on, and then he ended up calling me and I accepted.
Notice about where they file timelines, things that maybe were a little bit vague before. The Alliance is getting a bunch of funding to be able to work with our relatives. So if you get any relatives who are denied, I would definitely refer them to the Alliance or have Minors Council refer them to Alliance. I don't know how that works. In terms of what we can do,
Dude, I just realized
I'm trying to, in my head, distinguish between
social workers have been giving out my private cell phone number because that's what pops in their system.
There's case law that
somehow.
says our courts can't order.
And so it's like, didn't even notice till today. It's been like half their course.
But we can work on placement.
My personal cell phone
We
number.
do have some
Yeah.
judges who will order a child to be placed, even if the home's not approved, and then we could try to close it with a guardianship, or, you know, we have some of these kind of unapproved homes that are unfunded.
One judge in the building right now is saying, fine, I'll just do 29-day home visits, one right after the other, until, you know, as long as this kid needs to stay. I mean, hopefully the kid will return home sooner rather than later. But everyone should know, who's been to any of our ASFA trainings, that the way ASFA used to work was you would make the referral, the social worker had to make the referral, the timeline started ticking on that day. 30 days later, the ASFA unit had to send either an approval or a denial. And if it was a denial letter, the back of that letter had to have their appellate rights and the appellate process, and it was all very clear, and the appellate process was heard by an excellent administrative law judge who once delivered a training to us. What is that equivalent process under
It looks just
RFA?
like that. It looks just like that. And I think the difference, was actually better now, is sometimes we would hear ASFA say, oh, this guy's got a record that we'll never get an exemption for, and they stop the process, and they don't go all the way through, and they don't give a denial. That can't happen under RFA. If they make a referral and a request to be assessed, they have to go through the whole assessment before they give a denial. And so some of our relatives might not have had that due process right.
I'm gonna mute mine.
The ASFA unit was just saying, like, oh, we're not even going to go through this because they're not going to be.
I mean, I don't know if they can
that
tell
can't
if they're listening
happen.
to you. All right.
It's just like that. They get a letter, and it describes the process.
And actually, my experience was just a little bit different. What I found was that the social workers and the social worker unit were not making the ASFA referral. In my experience, the ASFA referral unit operated really, really well, and they adhered to their 30-day timelines. But the social workers who were working on the case would try to control the system by not submitting the waiver information to ASFA, by not making the ASFA referral. So what are those social workers going to do now in this situation? Well, number one, they're going to try to deny that the RFA approval process has been begun properly. And that's why I was holding up these two pieces of paper in the air, because that's the beginning of the process, correct? Mm-hmm. Once this is submitted, they should keep a copy of it. They should keep the date that they submitted it. And once that's submitted, the timeline starts running. But the timeline's now 90 days, and in all of the pilot counties, each and every one of them, they never met the 90-day time limit. As a matter of fact, it was more like 5 to 6 months was the average that they were taking. So what do we do in that situation?
We can do the same thing we try to do now. The ASFA's lagging. I mean, get them to come into court, get them to give progress reports to the court.
Have the RFA unit cited into court, the worker.
Yeah.
So what do we tell relatives about, like, when they start asking, well, what can we do to, like, speed up this process, and can I, get my bathroom today, can I do this and that, and is there anything they can do to point them to?
Yeah, I mean, they can go up and live scan on the 5th floor, and they're supposed to have these applications in the office. They assured us they were there. I guess Dennis went up today.
They weren't there, but hopefully
so
they will be now.
We ourselves should have some applications in the courtroom too, to get them to file. And then the Alliance has developed an RFA toolkit for relatives. It's really good. It has a lot of different tools. It has 388s attached and Isabella G motions and whatever they need to know about requesting placement and how to get through the approval process. And I'm going to share some of those. It's online also, so I'm going to share it with Dennis, and you guys will all. And that's a good resource to give to relatives, and they can kind of figure out on their own what they need to be doing to get the process rolling. I mean, 3 letters of recommendation, starting CPR classes. I mean, all this stuff takes a lot of time, so they can get a jump on it in all the time that they have with 4 kids placed in their home at night while they're trying to, work and make ends meet. So
this is for approval, though, not placement,
This
right?
is for approval, yeah.
For approval.
But it's a lot of stuff they have to do, and so, working with them to try to help them through the process is good. Yes.
So if you get the emergency placement and then the family member can't jump through the hoops or gets denied, does it get walked back on?
It's the same as we have now, so that hasn't changed. So we have kids who are placed pre-dispo using our 309 khaki class walkthrough, and then they're denied ASFA. a lot of our judges, and we are one of the only counties where the judges will issue do not remove orders, and then we essentially have unfunded placements. So that's my best recommendation. I don't know if they'll try to remove. They do try to remove now sometimes when there's an ASFA denial, and most of the time our courts are pretty good about saying no or leaving the kid there. So it's going to work exactly the same. Plus, you have this whole due process, situation going on in the administrative court. So you could try to delay that by saying, wait a minute, the relative is appealing this in the administrative courts. It wouldn't make sense to move the child and then move the child back. We should wait and see what's happening. There's no risk to the child. So those are that's what I would recommend. If you know that you have a shaky placement, even now, if we know we have relatives who have been denied adoption home studies or might not make it through this RFA conversion, we might want to start getting do not remove orders on those homes as well for current relatives, because we don't know when they start. DCFS is very overwhelmed with even getting the new relatives assessed, so I don't think they're going to do the conversions for a little while, but when they start doing those conversions, we don't want a situation for those of us who were here way back when the ASFA requirements came in where all these kids were being removed from homes. We don't want the same kind of situation to happen. So we can start being mindful of closing cases to guardianships or getting do not remove orders in those homes.
Another thing to keep in mind is all unapproved placements go through the Funding and Benefits Committee. And I know I've gotten real lax about my attendance at the Funding and Benefits Committee. I think all 5 firms need to make sure that they've got a representative at the Funding and Benefits Committee meeting from now on, because nothing is happening really because none of the RFAs have gone far enough to need to come before the Funding Benefits Committee, but that's where they will come. And Ladle needs to have a presence there so that we can, make sure that we're being heard by Judge Henry and by all the powers that be, because Funding and Benefits Committee has people from the Alliance, the administrative law judge goes there, the DCFS is there, the foster family agencies are there. Everybody's there in one room at one time, and if anybody is going to solve the problems that this system is going to create, it's probably going to be that committee.
Yeah.
Not to get bogged down in the minutia, but because there's so far communities done, but the live scan office here, I'm being told that there's not any new live scans for families that come in after 2016.
So I've been emailing back and forth with the head of the RFA unit about that issue because our attorneys were told the same thing. They're saying they now backed off of that. So I don't know if that was within the past. Week. Okay, so we will. So
we're gonna have to do something.
Surprise! So I'll email them again. What I was told is they're not doing any live scans for anybody. Is that my time up? They're not doing any live scans for anybody who's like talking.
Yeah.
Music. Okay.
She practiced for an Academy Award.
Yeah. They're not doing any live scans for any relatives who don't fill out the forms, unless they just want to get a live scan to be like a monitor or to visit. So if they're live scanning to be considered for placement, they have to fill out these forms, then they can live scan. Or they say, I just want a live scan to be a monitor or to visit, and then they shouldn't have to fill out forms. That's what I was told.
And Susan will hang out for 15 minutes at least to answer any questions that any of you have. Thank you guys. Thank you all for attending.
Oh, I got this chart.
Can I ask you